With us. Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang arrived in Taipei to meet chip-making partner TSMC days before the company's earnings release. His visit comes amid tensions over Nvidia's China-focused H2O chip, which Beijing has flagged as a security risk. Nvidia has asked to suppliers, including Foxconn, Samsung and Amkor, to halt work while it sells existing inventory. Here's what he said.
My main purpose is to visit TSMC. As you know, we have a next generation architecture called Rubin. And Rubin is very advanced. And we have now taped out 6 brand new chips to TSMC.
Huang thanked TSMC, which has taped out 6 new chips for Nvidia's next-generation Rubin supercomputers. He confirmed talks with Washington on a successor to the H20, tentatively called the B30A. The H20 cleared for sales in July after U.S. export curbs, faces uncertainty after Chinese regulators warned of security risks. Huang insisted the chip had no backdoors and said that production will resume once China orders. Huang thanked TSMC, which has now taped out 6 new chips for Nvidia's next-generation Rubin supercomputers. He confirmed talks with Washington on a successor for the H20, tentatively called the B30A. We're now joined by Ross Feingold once again. Ross, why did Jensen Huang choose this moment just before earnings to visit the TSMC in Taipei today?
The nature of Nvidia's role in the semiconductor world, and specifically in the world of artificial intelligence, makes it that Jensen Huang's travels, and frankly anything he says, attracts an enormous amount of attention. Now, we have to keep in mind that Nvidia is a chip designer. They don't do the manufacturing. They outsource the manufacturing. A lot of that manufacturing is outsourced to TSMC here in Taiwan, as well as TSMC's new plants in Arizona in the United States. So if we take Jensen Huang at his word, he had some technical issues to discuss with TSMC about production of Nvidia's chips. And of course, again, because of his outsized role in the semiconductor and artificial intelligence space, his travels and anything he says attracts an enormous amount of attention. And this trip was not publicly known until his flight was in the air about 12 hours ago and approaching Taipei, and suddenly attracted a lot of international media attention. But most likely this was about some technical issues with regard to the manufacturing of chips, and we should be cautious about reading too much into it. What is the biggest concern for Nvidia at the moment is its ability to resume that sale of the H20 chip, which you mentioned, to China, and there's 2 issues there. One, is the U.S. Department of Commerce going to issue the licenses? And 2, are Chinese regulators going to allow the import of those chips into China?
Yes, and as you've said, Beijing has flagged the H20 as a security risk, Ross. What exactly might China be worried about here?
Well, there have been media reports about the potential for so-called backdoor capability, which would allow Nvidia or potentially even the U.S. government, to put it in simple terms, to hack in to any devices or servers that have installed the H20 chip. Now, Nvidia has strenuously denied that. They say it's simply speculation, it's simply not true. But China has called Nvidia in for meetings, the regulators in China. They've quizzed Nvidia about this. They've asked Nvidia to provide more documentation to prove that there's no backdoors in the H20 chips. You're basically asking Nvidia to prove a negative, which is a bit of a challenge for Nvidia because Nvidia is saying it's just not there. It's not in the chip. There is a lot of speculation. Why is China doing this? simply to give its own domestic manufacturers time to catch up, as well as to force domestic artificial intelligence firms in China to use the existing Chinese manufactured chips, even if those chips are not as fast and not as capable as Nvidia's chips.
Ross Feingold, thank you very much for joining us. Pleasure to have you on the program as always. Well, that is all that we have time for this hour, but we will continue to bring you more news updates from around the world. Thank you very much for joining us.